We're official. I don't know what that means either, but thank you. Today is September 30th, 2024. This is Cindy. This hour is called Where the Rubber Meets the Road. And we allow certain concepts from A Course in Miracles to rise up, and we talk about how to use them in our day-to-day lives. This meeting and a few others that are in an open door, we record and upload onto YouTube just so that anybody could listen if they don't make it live. And as such, and as is my habit, I tend to begin with a song, and songs from YouTube you can't put in other YouTube recordings, so I have to put it on pause. I got a story about this song was chosen yesterday. It arose from inner wisdom. And then I will talk about what happened during my diet experiences this morning. I'm going to try to do it without crying. But the name of this song is "See Me Beautiful," and it is in the an Open Door YouTube music playlist, so you can access it at any time. But for those that are on the recording, highly recommend you go to an Open Door playlist and listen and watch "See Me Beautiful." Pause. Here we go. All right, so I have maybe 10 minutes-ish that I want to communicate, and then I'm going to open it up. And I'm going to begin at the end. This morning, in the beginning of my diet, I set an intention and I asked for clarity on today's teaching and the sharing, right? And especially, it's a quote from lesson 122, where we're being pointed to lifting dead thoughts. Been spending days with this idea of dead thoughts, and I'm going to read the whole quote. And once you lift dead thoughts, you can recognize the Son of God everywhere you look. I'm going to get into it. I've already got chills. So I put it on the altar before I began my diet experience this morning, asking inner wisdom and clarity on today's teaching. Really wanting not so, I don't care what dead thoughts are. My desire is to know how to lift them. You know, if the course is indicating, not even implying, that when you lift these dead thoughts, when you allow them to be forgiven, you'll be able to, here's the other word, the Father, that so that remembrance of your Father can arise across the threshold of your mind. Some point I thought I was going to rewrite all these words to make them all non-dual and stuff, but it didn't happen. But it would be easy enough. But in any case, I step into the diet with this intention, and I could talk about the Vasista Yoga quote, which was gorgeous. But about halfway through this dietic experience, I heard these words come through me. And do it without crying. They went something like this, variations of it over and over and over again. What God sees, all that God sees, is that you are loved, that you are holy, that you are beautiful, that you are to be celebrated. What God sees only is what is to be cherished. God sees that which is cared for, that which is loved, that which is beautiful. What God doesn't see doesn't exist. And then I'd sit in this and I'd get chills and I'd get contracted and I'd hear it again. All that God sees is beauty. It's that which is to be cherished, that which is loved, that which is beautiful, that which is to be celebrated, that which is cared for. All that God doesn't see doesn't exist. Man, I was crying inside and out. At the end, when I'm in my dyad with another online, you don't see my face. I just see my partner's face, and I'm in this space, and the energy's flowing. And then the dyad's over, and there was a flash of Cindy's picture on the screen, and the voice that came up was, "Man, is she ugly and old?" Like literally. And then my writing amounted to, dear Lord, I trust what just happened. What just happened was out of like, it was a direct experience of something, and my partner felt it. And there was a lot of different things going on, but there was no question it wasn't my conscious mind giving that notice. And as soon as it was over, what rose in me was a judgment about what I saw that I called Cindy and me. And I saw something that I wouldn't call beautiful, right? And what happened afterwards was the recognition that I'm going to choose to trust God's teaching more than Cindy's perception. And that what all I really saw was the continued belief that what I am is a body and a form. And it has nothing to do with how I behave in the world. It was just like, it's still working on me. Let's put it that way. So that's what just happened in the last couple of hours. And so here are the 3 points relative to when I was sitting. It was at some point towards the end of last week. I sent a message to Rana, and I even called Amy, and I said, we're talking about forgiveness on Monday. Um, we're talking about forgiveness. Now, there's a lot of different ways you could teach and share about forgiveness from the course, right? It's, I don't know how many thousands of times that word or some variation of that word is in the course. I didn't do the search, it'd be easy enough. But it's all over the course, right? But the 3 points. First one comes from instruction. Number one, what is forgiveness? Forgiveness recognizes what you thought your brother did to you has not occurred. There's something more I want to say about that. Lesson 121, what I wanted to bring into our conversation. The first sentence is, forgiveness is acquired. We have to learn it. It's not something, and why? Because it's not inherent in a mind which cannot sin. So in truth, there's no, like I've heard this in non-dual and other circles all the time. Why do we have to talk about forgiveness? We're divine and we're perfect. I've been hanging out long enough with Richard to know, well, the dream character certainly benefits from a dose of forgiveness, right? And as long as I'm hanging out as a dream character, and I know I am because I looked at a reflection on a computer and called it ugly this morning, and that could only happen in the dream, forgiveness is useful. So forgiveness is acquired. It is not inherent in a mind which cannot sin. As sin was an idea you taught yourself, forgiveness must be learned by you as well. Only the next thing in lesson 121, and this must not just be for me, Chuck. I'm happy you're here. We don't teach it like from the dream character doesn't teach the dream character how to forgive, as it says right here in lesson 121. It must be learned by you as well, but from a teacher other than yourself, represents the other capital S self in you. Through him, you learn how to forgive the self you think you made and let it disappear. And then the other line further down in this lesson, if you are willing, which I don't know if you guys have started listening to Roger yet for Thursday's conversation, but one of the things that's knocking me for a loop is Roger spends a lot of time talking about the fact that there is no doer and everything's just happening, and that might be true. But I love the fact that I have a choice here. And maybe the only choice is that I'm willing, but I still get all squirrely and uncomfortable if you don't give this mind something to do. So I'm giving my willingness to forgive, right? And then from lesson 122. Forgiveness lets the veil be lifted up that hides the face of Christ from those who look with unforgiving eyes upon the world. It lets you recognize the Son of God and clears your memory of all dead thoughts so that remembrance of your Father can arise across the threshold of your mind. I've been walking around with those words and I keep asking, what are dead thoughts, right? And what's arising, and I don't have all the answers, but what I'm going to share with you right now is when I sit and ask about dead thoughts, I'm brought right back to the beginning of what's on my notes. Forgiveness recognizes what you thought your brother did to you has not occurred. So all of these memories of even 5 minutes ago or last week or whatever, I put them all in the bucket of dead thoughts. That's number one. And number two, being very careful with this after my conversation with Rana yesterday. It's not just the bad things I thought my brother did. It's whatever I cling to. And a lot of the teachers we've been talking about, they say it's anything you resist or cling to. So what are my most cherished memories? What are the memories of like the birth of my children, or when I went on this vacation, or this, or the sound of this hug, or this party, or any of my memories that contain this belief that what I am is who this person was when this happened, whether it's good or bad. They hold this belief that what I am is something other than the Son of God, because the Son of God's in the flow. The Son of God is only now. And I've been resting in this idea that if I'm sitting here going, well, I am the mother of these two babies who are now 26 and 27 years old, only the memories that are coming up are when they were 4 and this happened, or when, you know, in the first year of their life, all these memories that are cherished as part of my structure of separation. They hide the sight of Christ in me right now. Or so I'm looking at. The only other thing I have is deep, deep gratitude, because sitting and preparing and allowing the preparation to come through is, well, it brought that message this morning, that I'm still looking at this idea of being able to clearly see that there's a judgment of who I am based on a reflection in a mirror. And that, if I am willing, can be forgiven, because what God sees is beautiful, and what God doesn't see doesn't exist. Just that clear statement. It's crazy what it's doing here. What God sees is beautiful. What God doesn't see doesn't exist. And where does your sense of who you are sit in that? And if it's something other than that, the Course teaches me anyway, that the idea that I'm something other than what God sees as beautiful can be forgiven if I am willing, but not from the dream character, but from the one that God or the universe has given to me to create this bridge. And that's what I'm placing on the table. Discussion for deepening into, for sharing, moving forward to what happens next. Please, Barbie.
Yeah, what came up for me when you were talking about dead thoughts, and this is before I got into the Course, is when my mom had her 91st birthday. And there was my two brothers and me, but it seemed like I was doing all the work. And my sister-in-law was getting on my nerves. And so I just walked away from her because I didn't want a confrontation. It was my mom's birthday. So and I was, she had health problems, but she wanted the attention on herself, like a pity party or whatever. And it didn't bother me, but everybody always talked about she's got cancer and blah, blah, this. Well, that night, I decided to enjoy myself because I couldn't enjoy myself in the party because I was running around and everything. So I sat down in the recliner and started having some wine, which I couldn't have. Well, I had to take care of everything. I was relaxing, minding my own business, and my sister-in-law started in on me, and I blew up. I'm sorry to say I blew up. My daughter came down the stairs crying. My brother was arguing with me, and it just ended up to be a mess. Then I felt sorry because 6 months later, she passed away. And me and my brother, we mended fences, but I don't think his kids did. And so from there, because of that, I thought I gave myself cancer. She had cancer, she had the attention. I wanted the attention, let me have cancer, but I know that's not true now. But when you were talking about that thoughts, that's the only thing that came up on me. Why did I do that? I don't know. I was trying to mind my own business and she stuck herself in front of me. And at that time, when you have a little wine, it's easier to blurt out things. And I did. Like I said, I'm in fencing with my brother, but
Well, I'm gonna take you right back. It's the end of chapter 5, right? My favorite prayer. I think it's the end of chapter 5. I must have made a mistake because I am not at peace. I made the mistake myself, but I made the decision myself, but I could decide otherwise. I will to decide otherwise because I am not at peace. And then what for me has been one of the most powerful lines stuck with me for years. I am not guilty. I am not guilty because the Holy Spirit will undo all the consequences of my wrong decision if I will to let Him. I will to let Him by allowing Him to choose for God for me. The last few lines, they remind us that there's no linearity in the Course in these teachings, that what we are as the Son of God is innocent. We are not guilty. And even if what occurred 10, 15, 20 years ago, and the people that it occurred with are no longer alive, the moment we give our willingness to have it forgiven and continue to give, because sometimes this healing happens in chunks and pieces, not all at once. The ego likes to tell us if it's not working and it comes back, it must be the process and we should find another teacher and another plan, but that's not true. It happens in whatever degree it happens. But if you work with just those lines, I am not guilty because the Holy Spirit will undo all the consequences of my wrong decision if I will to let Him. I will to let Him by allowing Him to choose for God for me.
okay. Thank you.
And if it's coming up in your mind here, even if the mind's saying I mostly already forgave it, it means that there's something else that can be done. There's another layer that can be let go of. At least that's my experience. Yeah. And you're beautiful, Barbie.
Thank you, and so are you.
Thank you. I'll take that in. Let's say you. Yes. You can unmute, Amy. Oh, Richard first. Hey, Richard.
Hi, everybody. Happy Monday. I love your share, all the shares, always have. And I like the idea of forgiveness. I'm kind of having a renaissance in my understanding of the Course in Miracles because I'm listening more and more to Kevin Kavanaugh. and Keith Kavanaugh. And what he's teaching me is we don't forgive the world. We don't forgive players in the world. First, I have to identify as the one child of God that believes is separated from its source. And from that elevation above the battleground, we then join with the Holy Spirit or Jesus, which is basically a memory of what reality is. And then we sink into the stillness that results from that meditation, being with all that is. And then from that level, and only from that level, can we forgive ourselves. And once we've forgiven ourselves, we then can project a world onto the world, the peace, love, and joy that we are in truth. And only through that can we then perceive the peace, love, and joy we want to see in the world. So seeing the face of Christ in everyone we look upon, I have found over the years to be very difficult because my conditioning is beauty means a certain thing. And so I have over the years looked at beauty as a definition or a form. And so now I'm learning more and more to see the passive form as connect with the spirit that we all are one. And then that is the face of Christ. And so that seems to be working for me right now. And I love you all and have a great day, a great week, I would also like to say that one of the things I'm dealing with also is frustration that many of the teachers of spirituality bring you to a point where you wake up. But none of them seem to talk about, now that you're awake, what the hell do you do? You're still in the illusion. You're still identifying as a separate self. So what is your job as a separate self? I mean, if I spent every second of every day in my mind being out of the dream, then I might as well go live in a cave. But I chose, the Course says we all chose to be here. So if I chose to be here and I'm now awake, granted, I'm not manifesting it as well as I like, but I know what my true self is. How do you do that? And nobody teaches that. They continue to teach all of us like we're beginners. And many of us are not beginners. We've been on this path for decades. So why I like to think of, how do I manifest the true self that I am in the illusion? I'm not trying to bring light to the illusion. I know that's not real. The illusion's not real. And the only thing that can heal the illusion is by bringing it to the light. But, and then it disappears. But even though I'm experiencing all these great things, I'm still a body. I'm still Richard most of the time. So how do I manifest my true self in the dream? I believe that's my function. So that's why I'm always saying, be the love that you are. And that's why I love everybody and everything, because that's what I am. So I'm a work in progress like all of us are. I love you all and have a great day.
So curious about how you interact with Roger in this week's satsang. I am. And then next week is Keith, the video you pointed me to. After that is Guy Finley. And then after that is a conversation. I can't, Rana, how do you pronounce the dude's name that William pointed me to last week? Sorry. Now he
Oh,
should,
Sadhara Guru.
yeah, him and Deepak have this 45-minute conversation, and I'm really excited.
Unfortunately, Thursday is a bad day for me, so I haven't been really keeping up with the lessons for the speakers for that meeting, and so I haven't listened to Roger's tape yet, and I haven't listened to Helen Hamilton yet, so I have a little catching up to do.
I was wondering in your share, I was gonna ask, well, what do you think about Helen? Because Helen isn't doing what you just suggested. It appears that Helen is sitting in maybe that song may be an answer. So the link is in the replay section. I've been moving the links from the podcast on Thursday into the YouTube replays, so we don't get too long on the website. But you still,
unfortunately, the day that you're gonna review Keith's program, or I won't be here, but I have a doctor's appointment that day. I can't change, so I'll miss that meeting, but I'll watch the replay. So
yeah, at some point, maybe we'll change we'll do whatever the group wants to do when the group wants to do it. I'm not attached to these times. I'm not attached to anything at the moment. Other than making a plane on time on Thursday, I still seem to be, or Wednesday. See, I got the day wrong and everything, Amy. If I show up at 6 a.m. at the airport to catch a plane on Thursday, I'll be a whole day too late.
just stay in the flow, you'll be there on time. Everything will work out perfectly.
Yeah, I trust that. All right, Amy. You gonna read all the things you put in the chat?
I could. I want to just thank Richard for his usual wisdom there. And I was going to suggest, as you did, Cindy, that he might want to just watch the Helen Hamilton video, because I think it does address some of what you brought up, Richard, which is, I completely agree with you. And I don't know, I'd be interested, Cindy, if you would sort of paraphrase what Helen's response to Richard really might be. But first of all, I want to say that I'm increasingly, this is in response to Richard, sitting in this place where I have my foot in both camps. One is knowing I am the I am, and that everything is perception is that. And that I didn't create myself, but that this experience is what is coming up for me as the I am. And I get to have whatever response I want to have to it. I mean, I can just have a total hissy fit, or I can remember whatever the I am sends through this beingness, which is itself. That's basically what I'm going to, that's the experience I'm going to have. I only have one choice, and that is to remember that I'm the I am, or not. And I'm not even sure that that's a choice. So that's kind of where I just am increasingly finding myself being comfortable. And it started probably 3 weeks ago with this very overwhelming sense of being the space. And my consciousness, my awareness, just being this empty space in which everything arises. And I floated with that for literally 3 or 4 days. And then, as I figured it would, it kind of subsided. But I've never gone completely back to, because I can touch that space again, over and over. Anyway, with regard to forgiveness, I just have one thing I want to say too. And Bill Free really gave me this phrase. He called it visceral intimacy, and I don't know where he got it, but I really like that phrase, or what that brings up for me with regard to forgiveness, because what forgiveness does for me is it gives me a visceral intimacy with peace. And so when I practice forgiveness in whatever form it comes up, I know I'm on the spot when I feel that visceral intimacy with peace and a sense of well-being for both myself and whatever the object of the forgiveness is, whether it's a person, place, or thing. Love you all.
Love you. Looking forward to your response to Roger's pointing about doership in
I
relationship to all the things you just shared.
I have watched Roger, and I have thought about you often because I do not enjoy his teaching. So I'm sitting with that.
Not, you know, it's interesting because we've talked about, right? So a strong resistance to something and a strong attraction to something, both are worthy of being with. And then they get neutralized, and then we hang out with the teachers that flow somehow. Yeah, I plan on being with what that 90 minutes again. I had some interesting responses, energetic responses to what he shared. I was curious. But you asked me to say a word about Helen in relationship to Richard. So while I'm waiting for Sandra's hand to go up, because something tells me it will, maybe I'm wrong. Key to the sad song with Helen is new. I think it was only within the last month, maybe more recent. So it was a new teaching. And in that teaching, what she said to me was, what she was teaching on was somebody had said to her the day before, I wish I was like you. You know, you are this great teacher and I am not. I don't remember the exact words. And she was like, no, stop. You're comparing based on what you believe another to be, and it's just not true. And it's wrong wherever you are on your journey to invest any energy in comparing yourself to someone who appears to be awake, because either we are misperceiving or we're looking at an end point. And she also clearly stated that she struggled a tremendous amount on her path. And even in recent days, she got to a place on her path where she just broke down into major, like, disgusting looking snot forming tears for some unknown period of time. It was all a journey and a letting go, and it was extraordinary to be in her presence, and then to have to move from this space of stating we're all on this path together. um and she even had some statements about how teaching is flowing through her now versus when she first started teaching, and she could see the shift. She really pointed to the fact that we're all on a journey and we're all on a flow, and as long as we're hanging out, she didn't say in Richard's dream suit, but that's what, you know, as long as we have the sense of being a separate self, we got work to do. And she was just so human about it, and it was stunning. So it will be enjoyable to see what happens, and what your response to that is. Did I do a good job, Amy? Did I?
Yeah, you did. You did. I want to respond to Sandra's chat comment. So many things coming in here. But first of all, in response to Sandra's chat, was she wanted to just hear more about having a foot in both camps. I think we both practice that all the time. All of us practice that all the time. And a direct example is Cindy. You immediately noticed that you had self-condemnation, right? So you came out of the dream right away. I mean, it was almost instinctive how quickly you noticed that your egoic, whatever you want to call it, that your egoic mind, the memory of not liking yourself came back up, you know? And that's what I mean about having the foot in both camps, because we go to sleep because, as Sandra has pointed out so many times, nothing does not happen in the absolute. Everything happens in the absolute, including going to sleep. You know, there's not some little egoic person over here who says, "Oh, I'm going to pull the veil down." It's all happening in oneness, right? So having a foot in both camps isn't even a choice. It's just the way things involve, the way it is. It's just what it is, right? And that's what I meant by saying all thoughts are dead thoughts, except the thought of oneness. They're just objects that are just arising and coming into consciousness. So you immediately noticing, and this is, I think, what we do until we don't. The time between being asleep and being, I hate this word, awake, being present with being in being, you know, more time is quote unquote time, more of ourselves relaxes in the presence of being, more and more and more, and the time spent in thoughts of sleep become less and less and less. But there isn't any doer. It's just all happening on its own. Love waking itself up to love, you know. And that's why I go with this visceral intimacy, because that is what feels more true to me than the thought. That visceral intimacy is really having my feet planted in presence, in being. That just feels right to me. So that's what I'm playing in. I'll let you know how it goes, of course. As you know, I can't keep my mouth shut.
Our friend Bob, whatever his name, Bob, the construction worker, he said he didn't like that word awake or enlightened either. He was using the words free and flow. And they feel better to me inside than. Should we let Rana speak? We could skip her and go right to David.
No, you cannot, because I can unmute myself. Hello, everyone. Very grateful to be here. I think I'm going to work a little backwards about, this, it seems to be my experience is one of forgetting and remembering. That's kind of how it happens. That's what I'm thinking about, having my feet in two worlds, I am consciously contemplating God a lot more throughout my day. It's just part of my world now, and I love that. But then becomes the times where the focus gets hyper focused on worldly things, and where's God and all that? Maybe forget for a second. But You know, we're not wrong for forgetting. I've got to remember that. We're not wrong, right? That I have forgotten that I am not a separate self. So we just use that wonderful tool of non-judgmental awareness and say, oh, look, I forgot again. But the sheer act of seeing that I forgot is part of the process, and the big thumbs up, right? Is I'm aware that I forgot. And so that's okay, because as soon as I think about the fact that I forgot, that's already in the past. So did that even happen? Let's move on. So in lesson 322, about forgiveness that Cindy was reading, and beautiful pointings about these dead thoughts. Thank you, everyone, for what you've talked. In paragraph 5, it says, changelessly, forgiveness stands before you like an open door. Get it? An open door? With warmth and welcome calling from beyond the doorway, bidding you to enter and make yourself at home where you belong. And isn't that what we're doing here? Isn't that what we're doing here? Which brings me to my second pointing from lesson 121. You know, thank you, Cindy, for saying, you know, forgiveness needs to be learned or acquired. And I was thinking about that with my own experience. I've learned so much about what forgiveness really is from you. From coming to gatherings like this, from talking about these ideas, from practicing these ideas and having my own experience with them. You know, you're the ones who have been teaching me, and I have learned from you, from teachers other than yourself, who represent the other capital S self in you. So we shine the light of awareness of self for each other and lead the way to the ultimate, back to source, you know, and that's what has been done for me here. And then that recognition, what, you know, you thought your brother did to you. Richard pointed that out last week. I heard it perhaps for the first time. And then I heard a Regina Dawn Akers thing, and she said this it the same way. To you never occurred. Because there's no me. There's no separate self that this happened. It's all a damn story. So there I am again. And this is where, for me, the borderland comes in, you know, and I guess it's just a practice of forgiveness, is where the truth lies side by side, you know, and I just sink into this space and allow any doubt to, you know, arise and just let it go, and take whatever person, place, or thing that I think I'm seeing in the world, take that to this beautiful place in stillness, because that's the most important doing that I can do, which I'm not really choosing anyway, but seemingly have that choice, right? I can suffer, bitch, suffer, or I can move into forgiveness. And I choose that one today because I continue to surround myself with you all who have the solution. You continue to point this one back to source, to what I truly am. And it was almost like seeing it for the first time today, you know, when it says, who represents the other self in you, capital S self, the mind, a question came up. And it said, how many times in a course, does it say capital S self? So when I did a search in my little thing, and even though I put it in quotations with a capital S, 448 came up, but there's a lot of small s self in there. I'm saying this for myself, you know what I mean? To teach myself that, see, Rana, capital S self has been there the whole time you've been reading it. And now I'm getting a chill. But there's a realization now, as Richard said, a renewal, like this core stuff doesn't get old. There's a new seeing each time you point me to look at, let's look at forgiveness again. You know? So I just want to really express my gratitude for this teaching today and really taking it to heart, and grateful that there's so much less self-judgment now. There's so much more, that's what you said or did. Okay, I see it. You know, and Barbie, thank you for sharing. I wanted to especially say thank you for what you shared today. Love you all.
Love you back. You are beautiful. Oh, we're all beautiful, by the way, in case I forget to say. Hey, David, you're beautiful
Yeah.
too.
I want to talk about forgiving. Today I did a real stupid thing. I was waiting for a call from that VA doctor's office, and I got a call, and sometimes the nurses call on their cell phones, so I never know. And so I answered the phone, which was a big mistake, and the person who was on there said, "Can you hear me?" And I said, "Yes." That's the worst thing you can ever do on a phone. Because they cord that and then they put it in, they plug it into places. I knew that, but I just slipped up and did it anyway. And so for the last several hours, I've just been beating myself up about that. What a stupid ass thing to do, because now I can get scammed very easily because they can use that. So I'm going to talk about forgiveness because it's I don't think about something about forgiving myself until something like this pops up, and then I know that I'm not forgiving myself much about anything, and so it's just there. The forgiveness door is locked for me. I've locked it, I guess, and so. And when somebody was talking about, Amy was have your feet in both camps. Well, that's true. I mean, I am in this world. I have to function in this world. To function in this world, I have to forgive myself for the things that I think I've done wrong. I've made mistakes. And I guess not only is that a punishment, my other punishment is I'm unforgiving to other people as much as I would like to be, because I can't forgive them if I don't forgive myself. It's kind of a package deal. So I guess today was a good wake up. There's that word, wake up call, to realize that, hey, I still need to work on that forgiving thing, because I'm still beating myself up every opportunity I get, because I keep that in my back pocket, that unforgiving thing, and use it whenever I really need to beat myself up. So it's not a good thing. So I guess I'm thanking. I gave myself the opportunity to look at what I'm doing. And now I can, okay, I need to work on that forgiveness thing some more. And so I will. And so, I treated myself to an awareness, and that's what I have to say about that.
I'm keeping my mouth closed. There's so many things I could say. There is one thing I'm going to say before I hand it to Richard, because, I got Joel Goldsmith in my head right now. He says the only time to do a treatment is now. I mean, the word for him is treatment. So the willingness for forgiveness actually happens now. The moment you say, I'll do it later, it doesn't happen. So forgive now. Yeah. Willing to allow that the one who the capital F self brought me to do this work for me now. So I'm going to leave it at that, because I heard a lot of me in that share. Hey, Richard.
ratios, by the way, as always, I want to share a tool I've used for a number of years now. Be 1 foot in both worlds kind of thing. You know, the Course says, as we all know, you can either in one mind or the other, either right-mindedness or wrong-mindedness. And the non-dual teaching, that means you either identify as a separate self or the I am. You can't be in both at the same time. And the current moment, you're on one or the other. So trying to integrate that into my life as a separate being and a full separate being that doesn't exist anyway. But I came up with the idea that I'm driving through my life experience as Richard, but who's driving the bus? Now, over the years, I've upgraded the bus to a Rolls-Royce, a private airplane, but I always end up with the bus. I don't know why, but that's the way it is with me and my story. I'm sticking to it. But so as long as everything's going well and everything's fine in my life, I'm in the flow, I'm assuming that my big ass self is driving the bus. But when I have an accident or all of a sudden I feel anything less than peace or love, somehow I realize I've let little self drive the bus. So I laugh at myself and go, time to switch out the drivers. And I go back to the capital S self driving the bus, and it drives as long as it can until I get upset again. And then I realize I have a different driver of the bus. Now that's working for me at the level of illusion. So I just wanted to share that with everyone.
Taking my hands off the wheel, Richard. See that? Hey, Sandra.
Hi, it's kind of getting kind of late, but so I'll try to be succinct. When I came into this non-dual teaching, it really used to drive me crazy, especially the question, who is the I? That would like send my head spinning. And I guess I thank you, Amy, for responding to my request to speak more about the two camps. So I spent a lot of time feeling like I was schizophrenic. There were two different I's going on. There was the little, like the little self I, the big self I, the personality I, the other I. And it definitely felt like that was the experience. And it felt as though I had a choice. I had a choice. Which I don't know. Had a choice where to come from. Where did this emanate from? And that I could go back and forth. So things have changed. It has evolved now. I don't feel like I have a foot in two camps. I'm in one camp. I don't feel like there's a little self and a big S self. I'm trying to figure out what's changed, but and express it, because what I would have called the little self, the personality, is so completely infused and permeated by my true being. And that little S self isn't forgetting anything. That's just part of the experience. It's all one experience. The experience of manifesting in a form that has all kinds of, I don't know, experiences. So this is an interesting, there's not time to go into it. This is a real interesting opportunity for that self-inquiry about what's going on here. And it's not like the I isn't always remembering, but that's because that's part of what it's supposed to do. Yes. That's it. That's kind of not schizophrenic. At least I'm not schizophrenic anymore.
You know, and I'm going to hand it over to Amy. And if we take two, you know, we'll stop recording in a minute. But as I was listening to you, what was arising in me was training wheels, lesson 4 tomorrow. So it should be very interesting.
Training wheels. Okay.
Yeah. Amy's class tomorrow morning. Hey, Amy.
These thoughts do not mean anything.
Yes.
It's true. It's so true. So the little self never wakes up, right?
It's
It never.
it's just one self. That's what I'm trying to say.
It-
There's
it's,
not a little self and a big self. There's
Yeah.
all one self.
it's all one self.
And it's, yeah.
It's all one self, just veiling itself to itself. But
I
it's
can stop trying to get rid of little self or trying to, I mean, it's just be immersed in the experience. And it's so, you know, it's just all exactly the way it's supposed to be. That's what's so, that's the freedom of it.
it's
That's
exactly
the freedom of it. The struggle is kind of gone.
yes.
And I'm not used to the struggle being gone. The mind wants to go back and figure out the struggle again, but the struggle is gone. And it's really nice.
Yeah. Yeah. And the little self never wakes up and doesn't decide when it's going to wake up. You know, it doesn't wake up and it doesn't decide when it's going to wake up, and all this desiring to wake up you know,
Oh, and this whole thing with I'm not the doer, that's the part, the aspect that doesn't fully understand who I am, because I am the doer. I am is the doer. And I am that I am. So it's just that I'll go back to calling it the character, the person who thinks they're not the doer, but that's because they don't know who they really are.
well, I hope we can hold all of this and tomorrow morning at 9:30.
Sorry for going on.
No, this is a great discussion, and I love it. Love us all.
Thanks for everybody. Thanks for listening.
Love us. I am going to turn the recorder off, but I am not going to then close the meeting room. Mwah! Here we go.